Introducing Tundra Football League.
Welcome back to all of my friends and fellow FTFLers to the longest running weekly episodic fantasy football update show. That is right. It is the FTFL weekly update, and not only am I the host of this amazing show, I am the owner of the #1 overall tippy top seed, the Hulkamaniacs, and ready to step into the ring and rumble this upcoming weekend. I am now the one and only king in the FTFL, and you know it to be true, that song that as you lay your head down on the pillow at night to sleep is softly singing deep down in your heart. That's right, it is I, Brett Sieber, and week 1 of the playoffs is now in the books. Two teams, Jeff and Ryan, came out gunning, absolutely putting up monstrous numbers, and for sure putting on notice to two teams, myself and Matt, who had buys this week. Now another team that had a strong performance, at least stronger than he has most of the season, Andy. Andy gets to the consolation round, says, you know what, while I'm here, I might as well stay a while. He plays well this week. He's in the consolation championship game next week, which of course they do hand out a trophy for that, so don't worry, Andy. If you win your last game, you are a champion in my book. However, you still are on the clock for the draft, first overall pick. The date and time of that draft coming up here in just a couple of weeks. We will have that finalized. Another game on the consolation side of the bracket was the Loser Parades Around Town Bowl. And as is often the case, Adam Swart found himself as the loser. Thought maybe the parade was going to be this week. However, it is not. Hopefully, we will get to see that next week. Now, before we move on to the games, I'd like to take a moment to just pay our respects to a branch of a tree that was sadly separated from its brothers and sisters and was lost last week during its horrific collision with Bart. A moment of silence. All right, well, thank you for that. You know what? Why don't we try to lighten the mood just a little bit as we get ready to cover the games? Bart, do you have some music that you could play for us? Some festive music, maybe? All right, boss, I'll get out on that. My speaker wasn't on up here, Bart. Nice job, buddy. Thanks a lot. All right, so let's go ahead and get to the games. First game this week, Mana, 3-time Lucky Pants, looking for a 4-time champ. Mana at 9-4, taking on Team Linkowitz at 6-7. And boy, oh boy, this game was a blowout. Team Linkowitz, Derrick Henry, 31 points. Tyreek Hill, 23.5. Wait, scratch that. John doesn't have those players anymore, so he lost. That's right, John 91, Jeff 131.5. Now he does have Derrick Henry on his team. Jeff, over the last 5 weeks, has not scored below 105 points. His team has been on an absolute tear to finish off the season, and in part because of that trade with John, bringing Derrick Henry over. 31 points for him. Nick Chubb and Stephon just on fire. Diggs both added 19. Dallas's defense. If you would have told me someone was starting Dallas's defense in the playoffs of the FTFL, I'd tell you, well, what did Swart do this time? But that's not the case, actually. No, instead, Jeff picked him up, played him, and 18 points later, he had himself a victory. Josh Allen, 16 points. DeAndre Hopkins, 12.5. Of course, he moves on to play Matt next week. For John, Jonathan Taylor, a strong finish to his rookie campaign, but of course John has been playing him down the stretch, probably because he doesn't have Derrick Henry anymore, thus not being able to keep him as a rookie. Maybe that was never his plan all along. Big Ben, 16 points. Ronald Jones II with 10.5, along with Cooper Kupp, also putting 10.5 on the board. Raheem Mostert, 5. The Baltimore defense, 4. He falls to Jeff and moves on to play Salty in the 5th place, which again, they do give a trophy for that, fellas, so don't be disheartened quite yet. Actually, I do believe it was brought up on the chat board. The 5th place trophy was meant to be... and that even too, the 5th place trophy was meant to be the AOK symbol. I believe we gave that to Matt, and maybe he promptly lost it or sat on it or both. I don't know. There is a 3rd place crystal pyramid. I don't remember who ended up with that last year, but that is out there too. That is what the losers of the games this week will be playing for, but we're not quite there yet. Now, next game on the winner's side of the bracket, the Ryan Deason Fantasy Football Team taking on the Radioactive Monkeys. Now, these two teams met last year in the playoffs, and Salty edged Deason 82-81. Roles reversed this year. Salty's the one getting edged 131 to 94.5. Ryan Deason, of course, led by the Kansas City trio. Tyreek Hill 23.5, Mahomes 22, Kelsey 18. Now, Kareem Hunt in his best game of the year, 21 points. He was averaging just over 9 points a contest. Blew it out the box this week. Allen Robinson with one of his better games this year, 18.5. Aaron Jones, a quiet 5 points. Now, if you are watching closely, and I know some of you are, Baker Mayfield on Deason's bench yet again. 2nd straight week, Baker Mayfield outscored Patrick Mahomes. He had 26 this week to Mahomes' 22. Next week, Baker Mayfield plays the Giants. I think that seems like maybe a good matchup that he could exploit. I guess we'll have to wait and see who Deason plans on playing. If you're Salty, Miles Sanders, 26. Over the last 3 games of this season, the point total was about 64.5. Over the other 7 games that he played, a combined 39. So he has been the absolute definition of boom or bust. Tom Brady, 18 points. Keenan Allen, 12.5. Colts defense, 11. Chris Godwin, 1 point. I did highlight this a few weeks ago that Chris Godwin has a rather disappointing season. When it mattered most, Godwin gets 1 point. Now remember, last year he traded away a 1st-round pick to get Chris Godwin. He also kept him. Return on investment really wasn't there this way. Al Gore on the bench, 14.5 points. It wouldn't have mattered. Salty still got his doors blown smooth off. Ryan Deason moves on to take on, well, I think you know who he's taking on. More on that later. Salty, of course, will play John in the 5th place game. For now, with his thoughts on the upcoming championship side of the bracket matchups and a little bit more on some trades this year, I give you the Macho Man. Ooh, yeah! Ooh, yeah! Sweet it is I, the Macho Man, yeah! Oh, yeah, it is time. Playoffs in the FTFL. Yeah, I'm gonna play the playoffs. Everyone wants to know who's gonna win the title. Yeah, who's gonna rise to the top? Who's gonna be the cream? The FTFL. I've got thoughts, because of course I've been musing. I've been thinking, and here are my thoughts. Yeah. First off, Mana. What is that? Is that what's a Muppet? What's a Muppet? Is cloth filled with stuffing? That ain't even real! It's not even a real thing. No, it's not. It's a doll. It's a toy. It's some child's plaything. And you have turned it into a fantasy football team. Now, the architect, that is the builder of greatness, the man with the plan. However, I think you've been using sticks instead of stones there, architect. Sticks instead of stones! And even the cloth Muppets got a chance to huff and puff and blow your house down this weekend. Now, on the other side of the bracket, we have got one of the biggest choke artists in the history of the league, the Hulkamaniacs. Hulkamaniacs, you have been on the doorstep only a couple of times, but in particular against Ryan Deesum and all of the iterations from here to everywhere. Yeah, he has been the cream. However, cats that eat lots of cream, you know what happens? You know what happens to a cat that eats lots of cream? That cat gets fat. Yeah, and you know what happens to fat cats? I'll tell you what happens to fat cats. They get slaughtered. That's right, maybe, just maybe. Just this once, Hulkamaniacs, loosen the grip a little and see what you got. Maybe you can do it. Then again, maybe the cream will rise to the top. Lastly, there's one individual in this league, in the FTFL, that I have been watching, and I have been thinking, how on earth do you have Tyreek Hill and Derrick Henry and let them go? How do you send them out the door? How do you send them packing? How does that even work? You had a chance to be great, and instead you chose mediocrity. And that's not going to take you to the top of the mountain. Now, 2021 will come soon for you, and you will have a chance at redemption, Mr. Linkowitz. But for this year, your hands are filled with what might have been. Macho Man, out! Dig it! Pleasure as always to have the Macho Man. Love to hear his thoughts. Somewhat incoherable. Incoherable? Is that right? I don't even know if that's a word. You know what? He's rubbing off on me. All right, on to the consolation side of things. The Pack Attack coming on in 6-7, taking on the Mixing Cocktails, who were 3-10. And again, like I said, the Mixing Cocktails decided while I'm here, I might as well stay a while. 109 for Andy, 74.5 for Eric. Lamar Jackson, another 30-plus point week, only his second of the season. Of course, last week was when he was on the bench for Andy. This week he actually played. 32 points in a bizarre and wild game against Cleveland on Monday night. David Montgomery, 21.5 points. Almost half of his 123 points on the season for Mr. Montgomery have come in the last 3 weeks. That dude is finishing strong. Of course, too little, too late if you're Andy. Marquise Brown did catch a 44-yard touchdown pass, helped him net 13 points on the week. For Eric, stupid face, Russell Wilson, 28 points. Juju with 11. Juju, another one of those receivers and players this year. We've talked about Godwin. We've talked about Ezekiel Elliott. Juju Smith-Schuster, this year, 113.5 points on the season. Last year, he missed 4 games and only netted 71. The year before that, 189.5. He absolutely misses having a number one receiver alongside him like he did for Antonio Brown in those early years of his career. Chase Claypool might be able to provide that, but it isn't anytime soon. Clyde Edwards-Helaire with 8.5 points, and Younghoe Koo, who has been leading Eric's team in scoring, only 6 points this week. He was only his second single-digit scoring week since week 4. Younghoe Koo has been a points machine. Not enough for Eric. He will play in the Toilet Bowl next week against the loser of the Deesum Award-winning visitors from Planet B with questionable motives, coming in at 3-10, taking on Make Cramerica Greater Again, the newly named, at 5-8. And like I said, we all knew this was the loser parades around town proclaiming my team sucks bowl. And what a dog fight. This also, too, was the Julio Jones versus Deonte Johnson part 2. And it didn't really add up because Julio sat out. Deonte only got 4, but those 4 points were absolutely the difference. 110.5 for Sid, 108.5 for Swart. If you're Sid, the Rams defense started out hot Thursday night with 21 points. Tannehill found his way into the starting lineup this week with 20 points. Mitch Trubisky on the bench, 22. But I applaud you for starting Tannehill and not Trubisky. Blankenship, 15. Dalvin Cook, 13. Eckler, 12.5. Imagine if Eckler had played all season. Sid would probably still be under 500. And Deonte got him 4. If you're Swart, his defense not to be outdone by the Rams, Washington netted 25 points. Mike Davis, 20.5. And when I read that 20.5 points, I thought, you know what? I've been reading Mike Davis's name a lot this year. I wonder where Mike Davis is in the pecking order of running backs for this season. He's number 13. And then it also led me to go, you know what? I kind of wonder what other running backs have had great seasons who were taken after Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That list in just a moment. Kirk Cousins, 14 points. Cam Akers in a strong finish to the season with 13. His newly acquired DJ Chark, 1 point. Julio didn't play. Of course, Chark could have been the difference. He could have played Emmanuel Sanders and won the game, but no, he didn't. Now that list. Of course, Eric, the very questionable number 1 overall draft pick, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we've been watching all season as James Robinson, an undrafted free agent, has outscored them all. Aaron Jones, who should have been kept by Swart instead of Kenny Galladay, which is probably why he'll get the Decent Award this year, should have been the number 1 pick and wasn't. Even Myles Gaskin has averaged more points a week than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and this, my friends, is the list of running backs who was drafted after Clyde, yet still has more points than he does, and I read James and his hot tub full of beautiful women Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Jonathan Go Bucky Taylor, Kenyon Drake, David Montgomery, Ronald Jones II, Mike Davis, Kareem Hunt, Naheem Hines, and last but least we not forget, Aaron Jones. That's right, Eric. If my simple Inver Grove Heights math tabulations, there are 10 of them. 10 of them who went undrafted. 10 of them, sorry, not undrafted, but drafted after Clyde, and 10 of them that have more points than he did. At this point, I kind of look at this 2 ways, maybe 3. Sid's season maybe deserves a decent, spending all that money and ending up with a 5-8 record. Andy's season maybe deserves a decent, going first to worst, best draft to the absolute worst team. Or maybe, just maybe, it's Eric for passing on all of these players and taking instead Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I will let you, the viewers, decide. All right, folks, we're going to hit the stud, the dud, the decent. We're going to get up out of here with some matchups and some announcements. Stud of the week, this was easy. Derrick Henry, 31 points. Rumbling, bumbling, stumbling. Mama, there goes that man again. He is looking very impressive. His matchups coming down the stretch, including Week 16 against my beloved Green Bay Packers, who we all know have struggled in the past stopping the run. Could be making hay for Mr. Henry. Dud of the week, Chris Godwin. Again, I already laid out the reasons why. This week's reason why Adam Schwartz should get the Decent Award, of course, DJ Chark playing over Emmanuel Sanders. Thanks for the extra $1 that I will be collecting when the season is all over. And you found yourself losing, and so you must parade around town. And maybe even, too, we throw into the mix John trading away not only Derrick Henry, but also Tyreek Hill in the season, in a part of the season when he was still in it for first place. Could have maybe even worked his way into a first-round bye. Would have definitely beat Jeff this week in the playoffs if he'd had both of those players. I know a lot of ifs and whats and coconuts and whatever you want to say after that. However, really interesting what it could have been for John Linkowitz. All right, on to week 2 of the playoffs, and boy, oh boy, do we have a doozy in store for you. The Hulkamaniacs, number 1 overall seed, coming in at 9-4, taking on Ryan Deesum and his nasty, sweat-crusted, can't reach all the places on my back, mildew growing, stepping on him because he's older than dirt, titties, and wait, but hold on, he changed his name. It's the Ryan Deesum Fantasy Football Team, and he is coming in at 7-7. Of course, the history is well documented. I have 3 wins in 22 chances against Ryan Deesum. We have seen each other twice in the postseason. In 2012, we played in the first round of the consolation bracket, and I lost. In 2014, we played in the first round on the winner's side of the bracket, and I lost. I'm 0-2 in the playoffs. I'm 3-17 or whatever it is during the rest of the time. But none of that matters. We go into this week, anything can happen, and I hope I'm sitting here next week celebrating what could possibly be the biggest victory in franchise history. You know what? Hold on. Bart, I'm going to need something a little bit more festive. Why don't you know what? This is too slow. This playlist that you sent me is no good. I'm going to need something better. Can you cue something up better, a little more pep in it? How about this one? I like that one. Let it play out. We'll see that one to the end. Thanks, Bart. All right, second game in the winner side of the bracket. The Architect at 9-4, number 2 seed, taking on Mana, 3-time Lucky Pants, looking for a 4th-time champ. Mana at 10-4, huge win for him last week. Now, Jeff comes into this game with a 6-2 record against Matt. No playoff matchups in the history. So Matt, too, facing a smaller mountain, yet a hill nonetheless when it comes to taking down Jeff. We'll just have to wait and see. Of course, that's why we play the games. 5th place championship, Blinkowitz 6-8, taking on the Monkeys at 8-6. And then the consolation championship, Mixing Cocktails at 4-10, taking on Make America Greater again at 6-8. And in the Toilet Bowl, Plan B at 3-11, taking on the Pack Attack at 6-8. We have reached what is quite possibly my favorite week of the FTFL Weekly Update season. Next week, it is the holiday extravaganza, and we are going to be live Wednesday, December 23rd, 8 p.m. via the Zooms. I will send out the links. It is going to be fun. Again, hopefully we're celebrating a victory over the big bad witch that is Deesum. Hopefully, maybe I get to see revenge against Matt? Maybe I get to see Jeff. Maybe I'm playing for the 3rd place game and I'm super grumpy and pissed. Who knows? I will hand out presents as is the tradition. It is going to be an absolute blast. Can't wait to see all of you then. But until next time, peace!